If you want to check out our thoughts on the non-Sydney teams, click on the last podcast. There's also some clips there for all the Queensland teams, Warriors, Storm, Raiders, Knights. But now we're going up to Sydney. We're going to go alphabetically. We'll start off with the Canterbury Bulldogs, who are at $41 to win the whole thing. Extensive ins and outs for the Bulldogs. Pretty much a complete rebuild over the last 3 seasons. I think it's the whole team in the last 4 seasons.
Yeah, I think since Gus Gould has joined, there's one player left.
Yeah, crazy.
Yes, well, so he's done Gus Gould things and he's turned the roster over completely.
Yep. So we do throw the term rebuild around a fair bit when we're talking various sporting teams, but this is knock down, start again, blow the whole thing up, and full on rebuild. Oh, yeah. Big name signing in Stephen Crichton coming across from the Panthers, likely to play fullback for the Dogs this season. Some other big name signings. We're not going to go through the entire list. Maybe just keep it to the bigger names. Josh Curran probably start in the forward pack, whether that's on the edge or I think he'd like to play 13 in his words. Coming across from the Warriors. I think Kurtman gets the 14, although it'll be interesting.
Hutchinson,
Jamin Summers.
In that list.
Yeah, so there's a few there that could be pushing for the 14. And I think a man who'll definitely have a starting position will be Bronson Cherry, coming back after years and years in the wilderness for the PEDs. So 4 years he's been out of the game. He did get caught when he was 18 or 19, so he's still only pretty young, and he looked pretty handy in the trials. Some bigger names to leave. Paul Alamotti, we saw him shine in that starting centre role. He goes over to the Panthers. Their club captain, Raymond Fatala Marina, he's going over to the Dragons. Probably the biggest name in terms of storylines this year, Cole Flanagan going over to the Dragons to play under his dad. Tavita Pangai Jr. and Josh Reynolds retiring. Corey Waddell over to Manly, amongst others, out. So huge ins and outs, the most extensive that we'll cover in this episode for sure. What does it mean for the club? And what are our thoughts here, boys, around the Bulldogs?
Think better again on paper, which was the same thing we said last year. And they maybe didn't perform like we thought they would. I think they really struggled last year for a halfback, so we'll have to see if they've fixed that issue this season. I think Steve Crichton's a good in for them. Interesting, they named him captain off the bat. Yeah. But I guess Panthers coach, Panthers system, Panthers culture is what they're trying to breed. So they've picked him as captain. But Matt Burton was the captain last year.
Well, so him and Reid Marnie, who had both been brought in just before, but like we're saying, the whole team's new, so it's not like you can have a guy that's been there for 5 or 6 years. Exactly. I thought it was a little strange as well. I think it adds a little bit of maybe unnecessary pressure on him, and I don't know the exact message that it sends to Burton and Marnie, who both senior handy players. Yeah, exactly right.
But I guess Crichton's played in that team versus them, so yeah, he's probably the more accomplished and most senior player in that team. You think about it.
Yeah, I suppose.
Outside of, say, Addo Carr.
Yep.
So, yeah, I can see why they've picked him. But, yeah.
I think you can put whatever number on his back. Obviously, playing centre is going to be different to playing fullback, but he's got all the talent in the world. So I think he'll probably be the right man for the job. Their spine is Critter, as aforementioned, Matt Burton. Toby Sexton played most of last season as the 7, and then Reid Marnie, or the back end of last season, I should say, for Toby Sexton. So it'll be interesting to see if that's 1, 6, 7 and 9 moving forward now for a number of years. I suppose the only real question mark there would be around Sexton, but some huge names in Critter, Burton and Marnie all coming across in the last few years.
Yeah, I think that's probably the key to unlocking their spine is the 7. And hopefully Sexton could be that dude. But I think we all had them still pretty low. I think I had them as 15, you 16, and then James at 14. So, in that back end, the last tier, as we will in this, fighting there with the Tigers, Dragons, and probably Titans for the bottom 4.
Raiders could possibly be in there too.
Raiders could sneak in there too.
Yeah, true.
Dolphins. Yeah.
Yeah, losing Tom Gilbert during the week didn't help their chances, but
Yeah, poor fella did his ACL, as did Cohen Hennis.
Yep.
Cowboys, so you never like to see that. For mine, I was buying into the rhetoric last year when that they're bringing in guys like Marnie and Burton. I'm thinking, they can only get better. And
They technically went backwards.
yeah, that was my concern. So I don't know if it's a player thing or if it's a culture thing. Granted, they looked really good in the trials. Yeah. They are only trial games. I just couldn't have them coming up any higher. I've also maybe a little bit of bias.
Put the Dragons
above them with Tigers and Dogs below. So maybe a little bit of thinking with my head and thinking with my heart and not my head there. But yeah, I felt like I've bought into the Canterbury rhetoric over the last few seasons, and they've kind of been like, they actually haven't gotten any better.
Yeah.
So I'd love to be proved wrong, Dogs fans. Get at me if you're listening. But I've gone a pretty lackluster year again for the Dogs. They've only won 7 games in 2023 and in 2022. Quite different results with the 15th last year and 12th the year before. But like I said, love to be proved wrong. I don't see it happening.
Yeah, agree.
I think, like you said, last year on paper we obviously thought they would have played overs what they actually did play. Having them at 14th, they've definitely added more players to the team. So I've just got them a little bit better than where they went last year. But again, kind of like the middle of the pack there, that bottom 5 or 6 could also just chop and change.
Yeah, and there'll be like we saw last year with the Knights. There'll be a team that just comes out of nowhere and no one's expecting a whole heap of them. So will it be the Dogs this year? Time will tell. But none of us have got high hopes for them.
Yeah.
Well, who's your Kalen Ponga of the Dogs? I guess.
Well, Ken Critter. Ken Critter put the one on his back and become a top level talent. And I don't know. It's a lot of pressure for him. Just one to keep an eye on, young Mitchell Woods. If they do think that Toby Sexton isn't the man, say in 2025, 2026, this kid's 17. He captained the Bulldogs to Harold Matt's premiership last year, so a lot of young talent coming through for the Dogs. Probably doesn't debut, barring some kind of catastrophe this year, but the kid was a 3 code talent growing up, so I was in both Swans and Waratahs academies, and he's
big raps.
He's picked the doggies, so it'll be interesting to keep an eye on him and whether or not he debuts this year or next year. Kid's got all the talent in the world, so keep an eye on that name, Mitchell Woods.
Yep.
That'll about do us for the doggies. Let's go down to the Shire and talk about the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks. They're $23 to win the whole thing. Pretty good, really, in terms of ladder last few years. Finals, another story. We'll get that into that in a second. Finished sixth last year, won 14 games. They finished second the year before and won 18 games. Sean, amongst you've got them finishing just in the 8, with you've gone 6th. You've gone 8th, and I've gone 11th. I've gone a down year for the Sharks.
Spicy.
Bringing Billy Burns from the Dragons and Michael Gabriel comes across as well.
Big outs.
Yeah, their outs are pretty big. They lose a lot of experience with Wade Graham going. Matt Ikavalu, winger, goes over to Catalans. Matt Moylan over to play for Lee, and Connor Tracy over to the Dogs as well. So I just don't know if they've recruited very well. We do know that Craig Fitzgibbon is a sort of pick and stick kind of operator. Once you're in his good books, it's pretty hard to get dropped. That seems to be the way that he likes to coach. And all this pressure around going so close but so far over the last few years, and I think a lot of these middle tier teams getting better. I've actually just gone the Sharks out of the 8. Having said that, their ceiling is probably 4th, 5th.
Well, I think that's probably like the range there, like 6 to 11. That middle pack of the competition is going to be hard fought. So you could be 11th outside looking in, or you could end up being 6th. So you need to go on a run. And I think for them to unlock that's Nicho Hines. He needs to have an excellent season, keep that form alive from the previous 2 years, and also take another step, kind of really cement himself. Banging down the door for an origin position kind of stuff. Like you really want to be having his best. And I feel like last year they beat every bad team and couldn't beat a good team. So
flat track bully sort of mentality about it.
Yeah, so I think that's the one area they should definitely look at is how do we win the big games? How do we beat the good teams? Because you're going to have to play a lot of them, and especially come finals time to be there. But I think 6 for me is probably their ceiling. But like you say, again, another couple of wins and they finish 4th. So like it's
it's so hard to predict. Like we're kind of getting a little repetitive, but outside of Penrith, Brisbane, maybe Storm,
or Storm. So.
Yeah, it's that next tier down really could be anyone, and Sharks certainly fit into that. But I just when I was going through it, and I thought, Manly are better. I thought Cowboys played under last year. I feel like the Warriors and Knights, will be riding high.
Can keep the momentum into the new season. So yeah. Hey Jimmy, I've got a challenge for you. Can you find the last time Melbourne wasn't in the top 4?
Ooh, yeah.
You'll have to go back year by year and check the ladder, but
it has happened.
It has to have happened
in more recent memory.
They have to finish like 5th.
Didn't the rate because they finished 5th and Raiders knocked them off in 2022?
Yeah, maybe it was.
I feel like that happened. Yeah. Anyways,
you figure that out, and we will keep going. Anything else on Sharkies? Anyone to watch?
Yes, I think Kale Iro is one to watch, or Iro, I think. 24-year-old centre. His old man Kevin played 350 first grade games, mostly in Super League. Uncle Tony played 250 games with Manly, Roosters, amongst other clubs. Both of dad and uncle played for the Kiwis, and there's good word that he might even be pushing Talakai out of the centre role, and possibly Talakai to play off the bench or as an edge back rower. I
think that's a good fit for him, realistically.
Yeah, he's one to watch there. He had that game against Manly a few years ago where he put Morgan Harper on.
It's got him an origin
in
spot,
the spin cycle, and got him an origin spot, and I think it was like, holy fuck, like on his day he's the best centre in the league, but finding that long term consistency, he's struggled, I suppose, doing it. So be interesting to see how they line up there. You'd think Ramian will have one of those centres positions locked up. Will it be Hero? Would it be Talakai? Does Talakai start as an edge? Does Talakai come off the bench? It's going to be an interesting sort of mix there. Outside of that, not a whole lot of changes. So Kennedy, Sione Katoa, Ronaldo Mulatalo probably going to be playing 1, 2 and 5. Trindle and Hines through the halves. I think Toby Rudolph, Royce Hunt will probably be the starting props. Blake Brayley hopefully stays fit. And then they've got one of the best edge back rowers in the game in Britton Nickera. Came along leaps and bounds last year. And I think Teague Wilton will probably get the other starting edge position out of Naruma. Played pretty well until his knee injury in about round 20 last year. And then probably the bigger bomber, Dale Finucane at 13, Cam McInnes 14.
Who's their captain? Is it
Alan Uwaley. Captain is Nicho, I'm pretty sure.
I thought Finucane started the season last year with it, but then he got hurt for a long period. I could be wrong, though.
So it used to be Wade Graham, who retired last year. So they
but he also was hurt a lot. So they might have had several captains last year.
Yeah.
There you go.
There we go. So, Finucane and McInnes. And I'm sure Nico led him a few times last year as well.
Yeah, because Finucane missed a large portion because he was hurt. So, that, again, doesn't surprise me.
How'd you go on that Melbourne Storm trivia?
So the last time they were outside of the 4th was in 2022.
Yeah, the Raiders knocked them off.
I think so, yep. Before that, 2014.
Yep.
2010 when they got their points stripped.
And
then before that was 2005.
Jesus. So post 2005, only four times, and with an asterisk next to one.
Of them.
Yeah.
3 times in 20 years.
It's incredible. Last year,
lock him in for a spot.
Last year, Nicho did captain 5 games, Finucane 13, Wade Graham 17. And that must be co-captains if my maths is any good, because that's more than 24 games.